Las Vegas is over and Max Verstappen has become a 4-time champion of the world. But there is still one championship left to settle as F1 heads into its penultimate round of the year, which means that once again it is time for my preview and predictions. This is a series where I'll be previewing and then at the end of the video giving out my early prediction for the Grand Prix. If you enjoyed the video then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now, let's get into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about the top teams later on, so please do stick around for that. Yep, F1 is heading to its penultimate race of the year in Qatar, and it is a sprint weekend once again, meaning that the teams and drivers have just one practice session before heading into sprint qualifying to get the setups right. So that means Red Bull can't do what they did in Las Vegas, which is get the rear wing setup completely wrong. And the Lusail circuit at Qatar is one which will see the cars corner at high speeds, with only the one real big braking zone. This means that the tyres and cars are put under immense amounts of stress and loads. Because of this, I expect that the teams will be running with a medium to high level of downforce, which is a lot higher than what we just saw in Las Vegas. And because of this, I anticipate that we will see a different running order once again. Temperatures around the Lusail circuit will also be a bit higher than what we just saw in Las Vegas, so I expect that the teams will not be struggling with graining as much as what we saw in Vegas, and they probably won't be struggling with bringing the tyres up to any decent temperature. That means to say that no, I don't think we will see another Mercedes 1-2 result. It also means to say that I expect Red Bull will be more competitive, especially with Max Verstappen, and McLaren will also likely be stronger as well. As for Sergio Perez, he'll probably get a good result. I mean, he might finish in 8th place. As I mentioned, the tyres around Lusail in Qatar take an absolute pounding due to the very high loads from the corners, and also the circuit is somewhat abrasive, which adds to the punishment that they take. And because of this, Pirelli will be bringing the hardest tyres in the range, meaning that the C1 will be the hard tyre, the C2 will be the medium tyre, and finally the C3 tyre will be the soft compound. Due to the curbs as well as loads from last year, the drivers were mandated to do a 3-stop strategy, which turned the race into one giant sprint race. It also meant that we saw a total of 54 pit stops. This year, I expect that the curbs will have been changed to make it a bit safer for the cars and also the tyres, so they can run more than 18 laps. But I still expect that it will be a multi-stop race, and we will see a 2-stop strategy using probably one set of mediums and 2 sets of hard tyres. If the curbs will be an issue again, then we may see another mandatory 3-stop race, which will definitely change the outlook of the Grand Prix. Overtaking at Qatar is possible, but it is not always the easiest due to there only really being one proper overtaking spot on the circuit. But last year there were still 48 on-track overtakes. To help with overtaking, the Qatar circuit does have DRS, but it is only the one DRS zone, and that is down the pit straight heading into turn 1. You can't really have a second or third zone due to the rest of the circuit being medium to high speed corners. Last year, the pole position lap time was set by Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, and that time was a 1:23.778. During that lap, Verstappen reached a top speed of 322 km per hour, which is a lot lower than what we just saw in Vegas, showing how the teams tend to run with more downforce. In the Grand Prix itself, due to the race being one giant sprint race, the fastest lap was actually very close to the pole lap, and that was also set by Max Verstappen, and that time was a 1:24.319. In this year's Grand Prix, whilst I expect the pole lap to be beaten, I don't think that the race fastest lap will be beaten, unless we are forced to have another sprint race style Grand Prix. I just want to say if you are enjoying the video so far, then would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. But now, let's get back to the video, and let's talk about Haas and Alpine. Yep, I am once again going to be talking about the battle for 6th in the Constructors Championship, as these teams are separated by just 4 points going into the final couple of races. Alpine jumped to 6th after an incredible Brazilian Grand Prix, but once again the Renault reliability struck and let them down, as Gasly's hard work from qualifying came undone, and also Esteban Ocon was having a solid race until Alpine called him into the pits, but didn't have anyone ready to serve him, essentially giving him a drive-through penalty. Because of this, Alpine has once again lost 6 in the constructors to Haas, as Haas are looking very, very strong. And going into Qatar, I think Haas will be once again the favourite of the midfield teams. Alpine had a chance, but I think they may have just blown their opportunity. For Haas though, P6 would mean an incredible amount to them, as they are still the smallest team in the sport. VCarb are also in with a shout at getting 6, but I think they need to improve themselves when it comes to strategy, as it looks like in Vegas, we saw them have a bit of a bad strategy race, which is what we've seen from them for pretty much the entire season. For Mercedes then, it was as if they were rolling back the years, as they dominated the race with George Russell, and Lewis Hamilton came from 10th to finish in 2nd place. It was something that I didn't think they would be able to do in race trim, I do have to say. However, going into Qatar, I will be surprised if they could repeat that feat. The reason that we're so strong in Vegas is because the Mercedes car works very well in cool temperatures due to how quickly they heat up their tyres. In Qatar, they don't have to worry about graining or cool temperatures. Instead, they need a car which works very well at high speed, which means that they will likely be struggling a little bit more in race trim to keep the tyres alive. I expect that normal service will resume, and they will be the 4th fastest car in race trim, and potentially be in a race all by themselves. That being said, I still expect a very good qualifying from them, and we could see one of the 2 cars on the front 2 rows of the grid. For Red Bull then, Max Verstappen brilliantly won his 4th World Championship after Red Bull made the race weekend harder than they needed to be early on in the weekend, as they were running far too much downforce and had to trim the wing down. But even so, Verstappen did all he needed to do in order to win the Drivers' World Championship, and his teammate Perez managed to score a point, which was nice of him. Heading into Qatar though, Red Bull I think should be confident that they can have a good race. The circuit should suit their car very nicely. There are not too many slow speed corners, which tends to hamper them. Instead, there are medium to high speed corners, and the circuit is flat, which is perfect for the Red Bull car this year. I still think they have a fantastic car in the medium to high speed corners as well, it has to be said. This means to say that I can see them potentially fighting for pole position, and from there, at least a podium with Max Verstappen. Perez might even get a top 6 finish, but that would require him to perform in qualifying, which is always hit or miss for Perez, as he now has as many Q1 eliminations in 2024 as Max Verstappen has had in his entire F1 career, which I think says a lot about the season Perez has had. For Ferrari then, the Las Vegas Grand Prix was a race where they did probably maximise their result. However, they went about it in a very difficult way, and the race had shades of Binotto-era Ferrari with some questionable strategies. Firstly, they called Sainz in when they were not even ready for him and then made him stay out, and he got away with what I think should have been a slam dunk penalty. Then with Charles Leclerc, they left him out on track for a few laps after that, which ended up costing him track position. But even so, I think 3rd and 4th were the best that they were going to do. Going into Qatar, I think they will be in a strong position, but I do expect McLaren and Red Bull to be better than them. The lack of heavy braking zones I think will hamper their biggest strength. I can also see Leclerc taking a power unit penalty of some kind, because in qualifying it was becoming clear that his old engine was starting to hamper him. I feel like a fresh engine for 2 races at full beans might actually help them in the fight against McLaren for the Constructors' Championship, especially if McLaren are going to be slightly stronger than them this weekend at the Lusail circuit. And finally for McLaren then, the race in Vegas was a bit of a disappointing one, and they were not as competitive as I think quite a few people thought that they would be. Norris was unable to really do anything about the top 5 in the race, and Piastri was a fair bit slower than his teammate. Going into Qatar though, McLaren should bounce back and be back towards the front, along with Verstappen. This is a kind of circuit that their car should really enjoy. Norris has now lost the Drivers' Championship to Max Verstappen, but the team is still leading the Constructors' Championship, and given that they could be pretty strong this weekend, then it is possible that they can secure the Constructors this weekend. Although, I do think it will go down to an Abu Dhabi showdown. With that in mind then, what are my early predictions for the Qatar Grand Prix? Well, I think the top midfield team and midfield driver will be Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas, as like I said, I think Haas are going to be strong at this circuit. But what about pole position in the top 5? Well, for pole position, I'm actually going to go for Max Verstappen to take pole position. But what about the top 5 in the Grand Prix? Well, I think in P5, I'm going to go for George Russell in the Mercedes. P4 will be Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. P3 will be Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. P2 will be Lando Norris. And I'm going to go for Max Verstappen to win the Qatar Grand Prix. That is because I do think Charles Leclerc will take a power unit penalty. If Leclerc doesn't take a power unit penalty, then I think there's a good chance he will finish in the top 5. I'm just not really sure where. But those are my thoughts. The question is, what do you guys think will happen? In the comment section down below, please do let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.